Good morning, everybody. Can you hear that?
Do you want to try it?
Good morning, everybody. Hello. So, good morning. Lovely to see you all, and I'm delighted that we are joined today by Sofia Cann, who heads up Cann Communications with her other half, friend of mine, Alex B. Cann. So welcome to Leeds Trinity.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. So with Cann Communications, having a little look at what you do, there's a really wide range, isn't there? So everything from marketing, communications, coaching, mentoring, video presenting, voiceovers, and event hosting. So obviously, and you're a publicist for several well-known actors and comedians and so on.
Yeah. So it all happened by accident. I actually went to university to be a police officer. So I was studying criminology and a master's in forensics. And then like you get your little part-time jobs to keep you going, a bit of extra pocket money. It was always started with like nightclubs, flying and things like that. And then I was given a marketing job and then a PR job. And I thought, what is it? I loved it. I kept getting told that I'm a natural. Yeah. So dotted about doing lots of different arts venues, marketing and PR.
Yeah.
And then I was asked quite a few times if I would be people's agents and publicist.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of research, kept saying no. And then I finally thought, I'm going to do this. This sounds like fun. And then off I went, and things just spin off. So, like when you're a publicist, yes, you're doing the PR side of things and raising profile. But because they're all creative people, they come up with great ideas.
Yeah.
So things like events and I know that kind of goes hand in hand anyway with PR, but doing some events with some well-known personalities has been really exciting. Yeah, and it's not off the shelf, so it's all bespoke.
Do you want to do some name dropping? We like to be a celebrity gossip, don't we?
I don't know. I think you'll all be a bit too young to know. Don't tell them. So Graham Park, who's one of the original Hacienda DJs.
Yeah.
So we do quite a bit of work, and that's really exciting because especially when COVID, he lost like all of his gigs because he's in the nightclub scene.
Oh, yeah.
But again, he reinvented himself. He always reinvents himself. Yes. And did live streaming sets for people to keep them chirpy and all that sort of stuff. So that was great. There's the lovely Chris Hawkins from Six Music. He's a sweetheart. He's lovely. And he's the most connected person I've ever known. So you'll chat and you'll go, we were just thinking, how would we ever get, I don't know, Maximo Park to this gig? And he'll go, I'll just call Paul Smith, the front man. And you're like, what? So, he's on the phone and he'll just fix things like that for you. So yeah, he's great. And then in terms of actors, there's Rhys Dinsdale, which, you're nodding, Yeah, he's been here, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so lovely Rhys. And he's doing, again, one of the things that helped him, it was a bit of therapy in lockdown. He talked as himself, which he's normally really uncomfortable and shy of doing because he's an actor and he can act and that's fine. So he's really come out and been open about some of the things that he's gone through and struggled with and how he's dealing with it. So we're taking that on tour. So I do the PR for that. And also booking in his events, which again is really exciting because it's adding like the programming strands to my skills that I didn't have before.
Yeah. So let me just go back to basics, because in this room we've got a mix of people. So hands up if you're sports journalists. Darren's got his hand up. Good. Hands up if you are journalists. Okay. Journalism and creative content, do we have any? Do we have broadcast journalists? Woohoo! Darren's got his hand up again, good. And what about media, MFC students? Have we got any MFC students? Okay, well, you can see we've got a real mix of, students. And all of them, everybody in this room, whether it's work placement or future work or whatever, will be coming into contact with press offices and PR. So can you define in your own words what PR is for? Hopefully you've got an idea, but how would you describe PR if it was 101?
Okay, gosh. Because you normally have to, depending on who you're talking to, you have to come up with a different version of it.
Yeah.
But I see it as helping to, or the way I do it is raising someone's profile or project's profile. So getting that media attention, but also the public. You deal with a lot of crisis.
Yes.
Say that word. But do you know what? I used to be really frightened of that, and realize it's once you've done a few, you've just got to remain calm.
Yeah.
And be honest.
Yes.
Don't lie, because
Crucial.
you will get caught out. So tell the truth, and people are a lot more forgiving and supportive, and a lot of talking. So a lot of phone calls, because I know when people meet me, they say, God, you never shut up. I don't, because it's my job. So reading the audience, so whether you're speaking to journalists or a client, it's how you yourself represent yourself to them and to the wider public. That's my caption of PR.
That's brilliant. So you can understand how, whether you're going to journalism or if you're going to communications, there's a lot of crossovers. So myself, in my career, I've also worked in, we were just chatting with your husband, Alex B. Cann, in sort of radio and so on. And so there is that crossover. So have you got any advice for the students about what they're learning in journalism, which is useful in the world of PR, or what you would like the future journalists to know to sort of work with?
Yeah, so I've noticed when I started in PR, you had this, you made strong connections with people and really nurtured the relationships with the journalists, and there was always that, you probably see it in the films and things, where you can call a journalist and tell them about something that's coming up. I don't see that happening as much anymore, and I wish it did. Both from like my journalist friends that say, we miss those days where you would tell us things, because everything's done by email, or and there seems to be this battle. I don't know if anyone else has experienced it with PR and journalists, where journalists publicly say, God, I hate PR people when they do this or this. So a lot of PR people are trying, and comms people are trying to turn that around and say, well, how do you want us to communicate with you? Because things have changed. Some like it when you say, hello, so-and-so, and I hope you're well, because it's polite. And some go, don't ask me that. You don't even know me. Yeah. So again, it's having that one-on-one, not a blanket email or same script that you read to someone. It's having that relationship and finding out a bit about them, because that works throughout every aspect of your life. Like understand if someone's got children, or how's like you just said, how's your nephew, and things like that. It's that personal touch. So I think that's key, and that's really worked for me, both for how I work with my clients, who have all pretty much become friends now. And journalists who have become friends. Yes. So it's giving a little bit of yourself to them, but also listening to the other side and about them as well. And having that personalised approach. Yeah. And so the key is developing those relationships and so on. So then you'll find that they will hopefully come to you first and represent your clients first. Yeah, absolutely. And being efficient. That's the other one that I'm really particular about, and I've never really hired anyone to work with me and Alex, and I check all Alex's stuff, which I know annoys him. But it's that being efficient and factual and things like that, because what I've experienced is with journalists, if you've given them everything intact, they always come back to you, and it gets to a point where they're calling you to say, what else have you got going on? Yep. And I love that. Yeah. Because you've built that relationship, and you should be proud of that. But being efficient, and from a journalist point of view, I suppose it's being clear as well. I was lucky when I started my career. I had journalists who said, you know, this is what we need from you. Whenever you send a press release, you need it this size image so it doesn't clog up the emails, that sort of stuff. And it's just being clear on what you want as journalists. And then, because PR people want to please you, we are people pleasers.
Yeah.
We want to please you. So tell them what you want to make your job easier.
Definitely. So having that deadlines and efficiency and the things that we teach you in journalism is great. So would you have any advice for people who wanted to work in PR and come over to the PR side? Obviously, you're doing journalism and media courses, but what advice would you have for people?
Don't listen to the negativity about PRs or this and that, the other. You make it what you want to really. Because when I started, when I was taught it, felt like it was really strict, you know, like this is what you do your research, you write press release, and there's a process. I haven't really used that process in years because, like I said, you build that lovely relationship with people, and you know, BBC Leeds might want their content slightly differently. You know that like TV, you know, Calendar, Look North, that sort of stuff, they're going to want clips, get it ready before they even ask you, put it together. So yeah, I think if you're thinking about comms and PR, you'll be fine with writing, because I know that's a huge part of your course, and deadlines. That's key, as you will all know. But I reach out, you know, things like Comms Hero, which is a fantastic open network. So you don't even have to be in comms. Really supportive, and it's free. They're all over Twitter. And actually, if you sign up, it's going to kill me for saying this. If you sign up to their mailing list, they send you loads of free things throughout the year. Also, like Sharpies and chocolate and...
Students, we like freebies, don't we?
Yeah. Notepads, personalised. And it's a really good network, that one. And then things like CIPR, which is... it is the paid version, but I know that if you're interested in the comm side and the PR, there's always people to talk to. So I'm a member, and I know people that get in touch and they send a list to say, does anyone want to speak to her? And it's like, yeah, I'll do it. Because we also get points for our membership. So, but we just like talking to others about what we do and, you know, what your strengths are and how you could fit in.
Just to clarify, CIPR is the Chartered Institute for Public Relations. So sort of, and
there's a lot of jargon as well.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, like journalism. So now, obviously, in this room we have a unique set of students, because you are the students that are the children of the pandemic. You're doing all your training in the pandemic, aren't you? And things have changed. Things have changed massively in communications. And I do feel that these industries, whether it's journalism or communications and PR, we're the ones that respond. We communicate, we tell the stories, you know, we keep up. So in your opinion, how have things changed because of the pandemic? That's a big question, isn't it?
It is a big question. I have been asked this before, and I have been booed so I'm gonna edit it. So on a personal note, I have OCD. I was going to say struggle with OCD, but I don't now. I feel like I manage it. So I have OCD, and I thought lockdown was going to be horrible. I loved it, you know, because from that side, I wasn't out shaking hands. Everybody was using hand gel and wearing masks. I was like, I feel normal now. Yeah, like this is great. So that was good, but it did push people to. I felt the relationship between PRs and journalists, where it was always email, because people were at home or, you know, wherever they were working, they wanted that human contact.
Right. So
I've never spoke to so many journalists. You know, by Zoom, by phone, it was like daily. So I was like, this is great. This is going to reset things. And I've made some new relationships through that. And also some that were not fading, but you know, when you get busy and you move on, and those have come back.
Brilliant.
So I thought that was good. And because of the people that I work with, like I said, they're all creative. They were constantly coming up with ideas. So it wasn't... I think in lockdown, I had like 2 or 3 months where I wasn't doing anything. And then it was work, which was full on. Yeah, which I loved.
Brilliant.
Just from my home office,
Yeah.
safe, clean.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how things have changed and how the silver linings and that opportunity to build relationships in a different way and, you know, perhaps a more productive way in some ways. So one of the words which keeps coming up and I want to explore a little bit more is creative, because your particular interest is in the arts and culture and creative, working with creative people. So some of your clients include the Leeds Playhouse, just having a quick look, York Theatre Royal, Square Chapel Arts Centre in Halifax. So you've got a range of sort of arts clients. Tell us a little bit more about how you've gravitated from criminology and policing, which I know you're still passionate about, to the arts. How did that happen?
So like I said, when I was at university, I got these jobs and then and I kept getting promoted and I was like, this is really exciting. When I came to the end of my course, I thought I have to go and do what I wanted to do, which is the policing side of things. Yeah. But I'll do it in a few years' time because I'm enjoying this. And I was enjoying the money, if I'm honest.
Yes.
And, you know, going from being a student to earning a nice wage was lovely.
Yeah.
So I was doing a few things in the Northeast because I studied up there, to do with like DJs and putting on events and nights and things like that, which grew. We'd go to like New York and come back, and it was amazing. Yeah. But then I have these moments, and I don't know if it is my OCD, where I was only like mid-20s, and I remember thinking, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in the nightclub scene, you know, when I'm 60 or whatever the retirement age has gone up to now, 70. So I panicked and I left. And I moved back home to West Yorkshire and worked for the National Media Museum because I always had a soft spot for that place. So they used to have the BBC studio in there as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
And that's when I really got into the arts and the marketing and PR side of stuff, and met so many incredible people through the festivals.
Yes.
And then when in the arts, probably in lots of marketing, PR and journalism world, you just sort of bounce around different companies. So there weren't clients, I actually worked for those. So National Media Museum, York Theatre Royal, and Leeds Playhouse, and now at Square Chapel Arts Centre.
Yeah.
And yeah, it all, I just found it, I was told that you either go down the road of your career driven and money, and then you get to a retirement early and you enjoy life, or you do the job that you always wanted to do or that you love. So you're loving every day. And then when you retire, you're not going to have that much money because you don't get a pension in the arts, or a good one. So that's the one that I chose.
You chose to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And do a job you love.
But now I'm in my 40s. I'm like, oh gosh, you know, I haven't got a pension. So I think about that when you're down the line. Yeah. And then through all those jobs, I started to meet these people like actors and the connections that I had would say, you know, go and speak to Soph about doing some work together. Yeah. So I set up Cann Communications, and then with Alex, who's my husband, with his skills, we thought we could pretty much cover lots, and we have, and we do. Yeah.
So what's the difference like now between being an employee and being your own boss?
So I did go fully freelance with the company. And then I sort of took a step back for a while because I really enjoy being an employee as well.
Yeah.
So I do both.
Yeah.
So Alex is freelance. I'll tell you my schedule. So Monday to Thursday, I work for a company that owns 5 venues. So one in Halifax, the rest are in Wigan, and they're like theatres and art centres, although they've just bought a hotel. I don't know why. So that's my core role. And then I'm a police volunteer on a Friday, and then 3 evenings a week and a Saturday I do my Cann comms. and then I have one day with my family. So
Wow.
that's what I do.
I don't know when you sleep or rest, but yeah, it sounds like you're having lots of fun.
Yeah, I love it. There's so much to do though as well. And, you can say no, which I used to, but I've got this new rule saying, yeah, I'll try that. So I would never do this. I would always put other people forward. And especially with journalists, I'll say, I'll find you someone. And then they were like, no, you do it. And lockdown, I thought, okay, I'll give it a whirl.
Well, thank you very much. We're honoured, so thank you. And hopefully, so would you recommend saying yes? Is it?
Yeah. Because some of the most amazing opportunities that have come up and people that I've worked with have come from the ones where I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure about that. Just say yes. And then you meet other people and like, I've become starstruck a few times, I'll put it that way.
Wow. So is this part of saying yes is pushing you out of a comfort zone?
Yes.
And obviously, I think a lot of you can perhaps relate to being pushed out of comfort zones and things like that. There's a lot of nodding of heads. So have you got any tips or strategies for when you feel out of your comfort zone? How do you persevere and how do you plow through it, in a sort of professional way?
Yeah. So in a professional way.
I mean, like as in, in a professional setting.
No. Again, this is hard to answer because of the OCD. So the way I do it is I've gone through like the whole CBT, and that's worked not just for my OCD. There's lots of like acronyms here, isn't there? And so I use that for everything. So when I decide to push myself to, out my comfort zone, the analogy that they give you is, if you're scared of spiders, you need to sit in a room with a spider for at least, I think it's 25 to 30 minutes. And then your brain, because you go into that fight or flight mode, and then your brain calms down and you realize it's not going to harm you. So I apply that to this sort of stuff now.
Brilliant.
And it's working. So I'm glad I know that. So yeah.
That's brilliant. Hey, should we set them a challenge? This is my challenge. You don't have to go along with it. You could, this is my challenge for you. Everybody's here, everyone who's listening on a live stream. If you can push yourself out of your comfort zone, and we encourage you to do this, don't we, Darren, in terms of approach to guest speakers, ask them questions and so on, which I know you're all doing and things. So perhaps you can tweet us at Journalism Week or something and just say how you've pushed yourself beyond your comfort zone this week. Should we do that?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Perhaps we can have a little look and see how they're doing, because you're really inspiring, to say you're here talking and doing that. So let's see, push yourself, tweet us and see how you've gone beyond that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And, have you said yes to something you perhaps wouldn't have done? So let's see.
But also that thing of, when you notice someone that you admire, or, like whether it's an actor or whatever, some people just go up, don't they, and go, can I have a selfie?
Yeah.
I don't do that. I used to just, sit in the background and just smile and I'm not going to talk to them, And then when I thought I've got to just talk to them, they are people. And then you do go over to them. Like, I've got lots of fantastic relationships now, because like Arthur Smith was one who's probably way too old for you guys to know, but he's a comedian, quite a famous one, and he was doing a comedy set in Harrogate. I didn't know who he was. Alex said, let's go to this comedy set. There's this comedian and a headliner. Arthur Smith said, never heard of him, let's go. So we went, and I was stood at the bar and he was ordering his drink, and I just said, you sound like the Yakult advert, the good bacteria, bad bacteria. And he laughed and he went, that's because it was me. Yeah. and he walked off, and I thought, what crazy old man. Sat down, and then he came on as the headliner, and I said to Alex, that's the guy at the bar that said he was the Yakult guy. So got talking to him, and now I'm his publicist and stage event manager. So an agent. So, and it's like those little conversations that you think, I feel silly saying that. Just say it. Yeah. What's the worst that can happen? They go, no, I'm not. Yeah. And you go, you sound like him. Thanks. Yeah. So don't be shy to get things wrong. In that case, you were right. But, you can
make the most.
They'll remember you as well because you're not saying the same old thing like, oh, I think you're amazing.
Something a bit different.
Yeah.
And do you use that you work with clients who are looking for those different angles and things like that? Is that...
Yeah. So again, Reese is a really good example, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. Reese was always, he's such an amazing person, really inspirational, never really saw it himself. And he did stay in his comfort zone, and he, he admitted that. And then he lost his dad, and it really changed him. And he decided, because I say to him, you can do Q&As, people want to hear from you, and you go, no. So like 2 years of trying to get him to do that. No. Didn't really want to give too much of himself away on Twitter, because obviously journalists pick up things from there as well. And then he did it. He pushed himself out of his comfort zone, and it's amazing to watch now because he's on stage. He's probably petrified, in the wings, but when he's there, he's himself, and it's just beautiful to watch. So that's a really good example of pushing yourself,
saying yes,
and supporting other people to push themselves out of their comfort zone.
Definitely. Now, talking about supporting other people and so on, obviously working together with your husband. Go on, he's not here, so we both know. Spill the beans. What's it like working with your other half?
I'm really lucky because Alex is wonderful, and we don't argue. I think the only things we argue about, nothing work related, apart from sometimes he does say, "Oh, I think you've undercharged there," and then I'll say to him, "That's not the going rate. You've undercharged there." So, and then we always say, "Yeah, but I like this project. We've got to stop doing that." So that's the professional side. But the only thing we argue about, and you'll all probably know this, are the fact that he buys bath bombs that cost a fortune, and he needs to stop. So he's really lovely to work with because you just ask him to do something and he does it. And you know what, that became one of the packages. So with all like your journalism skills, if you do end up going into PR, you've got so much to give, because with Alex, we'll have someone come to us and they'll say, we're trying to get on the radio or the telly, and it is competitive. So Alex will do an interview with them that's all recorded and edited, and they get to keep that, so they can use it on their social media, they can use it on the website, and you make your own media and give it out to your audience, if someone else isn't going to pick it up. So Alex does a lot of that, and that was something that, again, just happened by accident, and now people contact us to pay for that. Can we have that so we can put it in our evaluation, so we can get the word out ourselves? So that's a brilliant skill that you've all got. So definitely use that. Don't think, I've gone into PR and I'm just going to be writing all the time, because you can do lots. Be as creative as you want.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. So let's think about going back to university days. What tips have you got for our students? How do you think they should make the most? Who's a first year, level 4? We've got a few. Who's level 5? That's second year to you and me. Who's level 6? That's final year. Okay, so everyone's at different stages, but what top tips would you give for them now?
Is it still the same way in the first year? Because we were actually told you don't have to take the first year seriously, and I was like, I'm going to take it seriously.
No, we wouldn't say that, would we, Darren?
No, everybody was. Everyone was partying around me. See, I like studying.
Yeah.
I like learning. And I think if you find something that you enjoy in pretty much everything you do, and it'll just be a lot easier.
Yeah.
So, although I didn't study this that I'm working in now, for my criminology stuff, I loved all the murders. So I was watching every true crime, reading every true crime book I can get my hands on, and just listening and asking questions. Always ask questions. I mean, I asked loads. Yeah. And had a bit of reputation for it, but
You were destined to go into communications.
Yeah. Just ask questions. You find out so much from people, because people don't tend to just give things to you, do they? They don't just go, you know, I studied this, but now you've got to say, well, what did you study? And so ask questions, stick to your deadlines, because I'll tell you what, when people say to me, oh, you wasted your university days because you did criminology and forensics, and I say, no, not at all, because when you're at university, you don't realize at the time you're learning how to work to deadlines, manage your time, how to do research, which is so important. I think they should just teach that as a module, you know, like at school. This is how you research. Because for what I realized when I did the forensics, you were researching all the time. And now when I do my communications work, I use those research techniques that, you know, police and criminologists are using for my communications. And I actually, when I get feedback, people say, you know, Sofia's really forensic about what she does. And I'm like, good, because that's what I'm trying to do. So, and this sounds corny. And I know when I was probably your age, people laughed at me, but now I'm laughing, because I did keep a little diary of like skills I was picking up and learning, which ones I wanted to become stronger at, and the gaps. And so I would always try and find like placements where I was really clear and said, I would love to learn about this. And then they would pair me with someone. So it wouldn't just be a general covering everything. It was specific. And that really helped me. So
having a really sort of strategic planned approach to your own development and sort of.
And it doesn't even have to be all official. It's just, you know, in your diary at the back. That's what I used to do at the back. It's like even something as simple as I remember the first time I pulled a pint in a bar. I was like, I can pull a pint. Which is funny.
Essential skill.
No. But actually now in the arts venue that I work in, when they were short staffed, I went back there and I said, I can do it. I did this at uni, a bit rough, but you know. So little things like that, all skills. I remember the first time I learned how to research and write a press release, and I'd put that in there because I wanted to get better at it. So I just had 2 columns that said all the skills I've learned, the ones that were strong at. Brilliant. And then I'd circle ones I want, and then I'd go after them, and I still do it. And it seems to have worked, because I don't go out and pitch for work, which is nice. It just sort of rolls in, and then because people will get to know you, and word of mouth is still really important, even though everyone says, you know, it isn't. Social media is a thing. Social media is your word of mouth as well. So start building your persona for what you want to be in the future during your career. Is my top tip.
In your role, you do quite a bit of sort of coaching with clients and mentoring and so on. Who could you identify people who've turned to for mentoring yourself, or who've inspired you in your career?
I've had a number of people in my throughout my studies, and so the research side was I think he was a retired detective who'd gone into lecturing, and he taught me how to do that research forensically. And it was, and I'll never forget this. The reason because I used to say, you're amazing at this. You don't drop the ball. And he said, that's because I did drop the ball once, and it haunted him forever, because it was, I won't name it because it's going out, but it was a really famous case where a family was murdered, and he was the first detective on scene. And the first thing that they taught is to check that if anyone's alive, you know, like, and he checked 2 and not the third one, because he just thought that they all look. The third one was. And because they were left in that state and cordoned off to wait for forensics to come in, it wasn't until an arm moved. But then you got, and that haunted him forever, because there was a risk. I mean, luckily she recovered and she was fine. But there could have been the risk of brain damage, or so he decided to go and teach people to not make those mistakes, those real serious mistakes. So I learned that from him, and that stayed with me. And then throughout my career, I think people that I've, so Graham Park was somebody that I met, became friends with, stayed in touch with. We'd contact each other about what's he working on, what am I working on. And this was before we officially properly worked together. I find him inspiring. He's so organised. He meets deadlines. He's like looking in the mirror.
Wow.
Apart from he's got no hair, he and a big beard. And it's things like that. I think you'll start admiring people that you either want to be like, or you want to take some traits from, or just sort of impart that knowledge in you, and it sticks. So it's things like that. Mine were quite like, you know, not making huge mistakes, researching properly, and just being nice to people. So I do have a bit of a criteria with when I do say no sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's when I used to be rubbish at red flags.
Right.
In any part of my life, personal or work, you know, I was always, let's work together. That's great.
Right.
And I have had like one go disastrous. It was awful.
Oh, no.
So I was like, right, what can I learn from that? So I do put in clear terms, and I do have like a cooling off period that I should have probably done originally. So we'll trial. So I would never just go straight in and say to someone, yes, I agree to be your publicist. We'll trial like a 6-month contract, and make sure you have terms in that say things like, if you, if there's any inappropriate behaviour privately, publicly, or anything like that that's going to affect my reputation, we could terminate this immediately. And just things like that, just to safeguard yourself, really.
So setting boundaries and having that profession of the contracts and things like that. Yeah, it's really important.
Very.
So I'm going to bring it a little bit back to university, because one of the things you spoke about earlier was the work that you did at university with the nightclubs and things like that, which helped, you know, open up worlds of events and communications and things. So let's just ask our audience, how many of you have got a job whilst you're here? Hands up. Great. Darren's got a job. Great. Good. I'm glad to hear that.
What sort of jobs are you? Coffee shop.
Oh, so there was something else. Shout out someone. The ambassador for universities. Yeah.
Oh.
The kind of job where you don't get paid on time.
Oh dear. Wow. Teaching English as a foreign language.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So there's a range of jobs, from teaching English as a foreign language to working in a cafe and so on. So how would you recommend that you can get sort of learning from all of these different type of jobs, perhaps, to turn them in? Because communication just covers everything, doesn't it? There's not an area you can't do communication for. So any top tips about how this part-time work, or, you know, how you can help to develop those professional communication skills with the jobs that you currently do?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, when I was doing them, I just thought, I'm just doing this for some extra money, and that's all it is. And didn't really think about it that much, because, you know, I was going to be a police officer and then a detective. That was me. So it wasn't until, I started with a friend of mine was giving out flyers in a busy night scene for a club and a bar. And I thought, yeah, that's fine. And then when you finish, you go out as well. So it's like, yeah, I'll do that. So that was easy. I realised I did find it easy to speak to people, which I didn't at school. So, and one of the managers said, look, you know, we want you to be our event host.
Wow.
So you're looking after people, just making sure they're having a nice time, all that sort of stuff. And I remember at the time as well, I said, and again, it's about asking questions. And I went, is that like a legal thing? It sounds a bit rude. And he was like, no, it's all above board. And so again, you know, like being a bit cheeky and things like that. And then it just grew into, they had a post for a marketing assistant, and I was honest. And I said, I don't really know what you do in that. So they explained it, and they were pulling out my strengths and skills that I didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
And they all kept saying, you got great communication skills. You can talk to pretty much anyone. And I was like, can I? So I would say in the jobs that you're doing, don't just see it as, I'm just doing this to get a bit of money or to get me through university. If you're doing these courses, journalism, things like that, you're going to be talking to people and communicating with all sorts of people, shy, vulnerable, all sorts that come into these shops. Chat to them and find your way of communicating. You won't always get it right, but you won't know until you practice it. And then you'll start feeling that natural, comfortable, and you'll quickly find your own way, which will set you up, I think, for anything. Because you've got to, in anything you do, really, you've got to be able to talk to people, whether it's phone, Zoom, face to face, or in front of them like this. So start, use it as training ground.
Yeah. That's great advice. Thank you. Now, quick question. Why didn't you go into the police? I know the answer, but let's tell what's the answer? Why didn't you go into the police?
So I really did want to, and then I was like, oh, you know what? I'll try in 5 years. And then 5 years whizzed by, and time will fly by. And I remember thinking, I will be in the police definitely before I'm 30. And then 30 came and went, and I thought, oh God, no. And then it was, when I was 38, I thought I'd better start applying because it takes like a couple of years. Yeah. So I did, and I got in. I got 2 places, one as a trainee detective, one as a police officer. Yeah. And then I got COVID. And I think it was a sign, actually, because I passed absolutely everything. Wow. And I was so excited. And I just kept thinking, that's what I'm going to go and do now. And then I got COVID and long COVID. So I couldn't pass the fitness test that I could in the mocks. Yeah. So, and I'm still the effects of long COVID, but I was gutted, but I just thought that must be a sign to say, because I know everyone that I work with, Reese and everyone, were like, we don't want you to go and do that.
Don't leave us.
If you're gonna go, and it was all that sort of. No one was really like, well done, congratulations. It was like, what are you doing that for? Yeah. And we're always waiting for you if it doesn't work out and you want to come back, which is really sweet. Yeah. But I haven't dropped it altogether. Yeah. So
you've got your Fridays, haven't you?
Yeah, and they did change my application to a special constable and said once they'll leave it open, and once if I recover from and get my fitness back up to where it should be, I can be a special constable. So for now, I'm volunteering with a team that do sort of like outreach work. So they're going to schools and colleges and universities and talk about, all sorts really.
Well, you do know we have policing courses here for West Yorkshire and lots of criminology courses and things. So for my colleagues in the department, she will be bringing you back.
Yes, please.
And she's saying yes to everything. So
well, and I've bought I've as a like a compromise, I've brought my 2 worlds together. So my policing and my arts, and everyone thought I was mad, but I've done it. And we've got our first show tonight in Chester at Story House.
Fantastic.
So
Tell us more about that.
So it's everybody that I work with. So I went round, I was like, how can I do this? So we've got, there's 2 chaps. One is a serving officer. He's a dog handler. And again, this is when you ask questions, you find out so much about people and how interesting pretty much everyone is. Yeah. So Dave Wardell is a dog handler, and he was on Britain's Got Talent because his dog saved his life on duty. So someone had stabbed him and his dog was really close to death and came back from the brink. And they've changed the law now. So I think it was police dogs, if you'd harm them, whatever, it wasn't a crime or anything. And the same with domestic pets. So they've changed it. So now it is. And so that's amazing. So he's part of the show. And then we've got Harry Tangy, who is a former armed officer and VIP protection, so looked after like the royals and prime ministers and things like that. He's now retired. So I started as his publicist, which has been so much fun because it's ticking that police box for me. Yeah. And he loves the arts. So I was like, how can we make this work? And they have a podcast that they did in lockdown called Frontline Chat, and they'd interview police people. I'd seen it and said, why don't you interview the people that I work with? Because, okay, they're not cops, but they've played cops. So they've all featured on there. And then Arthur Smith, who the comedian that I told you about, his dad was a police officer in the 50s. And he hated arresting people. So he does a whole stand-up set about his dad, Sid. So what we've done is we've got the podcast for the first half, and then Arthur does his stand-up in the second half, and we've sold tickets.
Amazing.
And it's happening tonight. Yeah,
Wow.
And it will be coming to Leeds,
Farsley
in March or April next year, I think.
Brilliant.
So yay, we did it.
That's fantastic. And despite all the lockdown restrictions and everything, well done. Brilliant.
Thanks. Yeah, really tough with that one.
Well, on that note, it's great for me to sort of end my questions to you with how you've married, your first love with, your natural ability for communications and so on. And I think it's time, if you don't mind, to just open to any questions from the audience. So we have, thank you, Mark.
Hi, so I was just going to ask about how important is social media for PR? Because especially with the pandemic, with people not going out, how important has that been for PR especially?
Huge. I always say social media. I'm not one of those that's in my 40s and goes, social media. It is really important, but I think sometimes people forget that it's not the only channel of communication, and that's where I think you can go, because you're just focusing on that, and there's still a lot of people that aren't on either Facebook or Twitter, and the demographic keeps changing. But yeah, it's a really big part of it, and I know you guys are all probably really comfortable with it, but when I was first, back in the olden days,
I remember
when social media was all the rage, I wasn't on any of the platforms, and I think I only joined Facebook because a close friend had passed away and everybody was putting memories of him on there. So I was like, well, I have to join this now. And then someone said about Twitter, which I made an account but didn't do anything with. And then when I started my job at the Media Museum, I was in it for 2 years, and they had a digital team, and I was in awe of them, because it's like, I don't know what you do, but it's amazing, because it just looked really hard and techie, and they were made redundant, and they said they were going to bring the digital in-house, and I thought, oh, okay, how are they going to do this? Really naive. And I was called into a meeting, and they said, so we've looked at everybody's social media channels, and you seem to have the most on there. And I was like, I've got 50 people on Facebook and 10 on Twitter. What's everybody else got? And they're like, they're not even on it. So it was given to me. And I remember saying, I'm going to resign because I don't want to do that. That's not me. That's for really young people. So I took it on, and it was the best thing I ever did, because a lot of my connections are made on there. A lot of people get in touch as well to say, can we have a chat about the services that you provide and maybe how we could work on this project? It all comes through there. And it's just instant, isn't it? Getting your message out instantly whilst you wait for the papers and radio to pick it up. So yeah, it's a huge part of what you do altogether everywhere, I suppose now, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, what would you say has been your career highlight so far?
Oh no, I'm really fickle. So now I'm going to go frontline chat on stage. But there's been so many. I think one of the best ones was I was doing the PR and marketing on a theatre show that was coming to us, and something went horribly wrong, and it completely sold out. And the choice was, we either pull it and give everyone the refund, or somebody in-house takes it over and finds a director and becomes a producer. And it was one of those things where you go, I can't be a producer. I see what they do. I can't do that.
Yep.
I became a producer, and now it's added on to what I do because I love it. And we put that show on so a show normally would take a minimum of 3 to 4 months to rehearse, put on, tech it. We did it in 3 weeks, because that's when we knew it was going to collapse. So I think that was a highlight, because it was lovely to watch everyone enjoy it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, well, I would like to just, if you could join me in just saying thank you very much and saying yes, joining us. Thanks.